I did want to ask about plotting and about when you start to learn how to do writing, because I've been listening to you teach writing to kids through the
Okay.
Travelers League, which I want to talk more about your YouTube show, which
Yeah,
everyone could be subscribing to right now while we're talking. It's the
that
Travelers
would be
League.
wonderful.
What's the YouTube landing page?
Sure. The YouTube landing page, the channel is called the Travelers League YouTube channel. And the writing tips for kids, there are 4 of those episodes out, and that's going to be a 10 video series. And the content has come from just what I've learned about writing and self-publishing.
Is this from since 2018 you've learned all this, or had you been kind of looking into it prior to that?
Really, since 2018, when I started going down this whole journey of learning how to write and what readers expect and what makes a good story. And are you a plotter or a pantser, and how to organize a story and create characters, and all the things you learn in addition to that as you go, as you refine what you know and then apply it. So these are all of the best practices, if you will, that I've learned from the self-publishing community. And I went to I did go to a writers conference that was here in Nashville year before last during the summer, because I just wanted to learn more of that. How can I become a better writer? A lot of it was geared towards more of the traditional published crowd. There are a lot of literary agents there, people pitching their books, but some of the workshops were about story structure and creating memorable characters. And I took a ton of notes and started applying that to the books I was writing. And so the writing tips for kids, this is, as an adult, what I've learned, the best practices I've learned about writing and publishing, but distilled for a kid to be able to grasp it and apply it. And the reason behind creating the video series actually is kind of an invention of my wife's. There's a big homeschool community here, and she thought it would be a cool idea to have some homeschool kids come over here to our house one day that are interested in becoming writers, writing books and creating stories, and to share with them, all these things that I've learned. And I thought, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So what we decided to do was to take the things I'm going to tell them and create just a video for each topic and put it on YouTube so they have something to watch before they come over. And this is going to be in April, by the way. So we have 12 kids coming over. And the cool thing we're doing is that each child has read at least the first book in the series of the Travelers League series.
Okay, sure.
And there's a chapter in there about one of the worlds that the kid has to go through. And so the challenge was to the kids attending this get together that I wanted each one in 1,000 words or less to write a backstory about that world. It's a world where there's a group of humans and there's a group of what I call marsh trolls, and they're at war with each other. And I wanted the kids to come up with some ideas about how the world got that way. Did they live at peace? Have they always been at war? Have travelers always been coming through that world with a timepiece? Or what happened in the past? And so 12 kids, including my 2, all sent their submissions. And what I did was I'm taking ideas, characters, events, just ideas from these kids, and I organized them into a storyline, a story structure. And I'm going to write a book using all their ideas. And then I'm going to publish it. And in the back of the book, I'm going to include each child's actual submission, so they'll all get writing credit. But the story is going to come from the collective ideas of these 12 kids. So they're going to recognize characters that they came up with or events that they came up with, and I'm going to publish it. And we're going to have all the proceeds go to a local charity here that I think supports literacy. My wife's picking the charity. There's a couple that we're looking at right now. But when they come over in April, the reason we're planning it so far out is because I want to be able to order author copies and give a copy to each child when they come over. So we can talk about writing. They can have a physical book they can hold in their hand. They can open it and see their characters and their ideas actually printed in a book. So we're doing that for our local homeschool group here. So, and that's why I created the videos, because I wanted them to watch those first before they came over, so they'd be ready for the conversations.
Look at you with the total life synchronization. You're getting the homeschooling done, but you've got the content for YouTube. You've got a new book coming out.
Yeah.
And everybody's getting credit, but there's your name, and it's just, my God, you're hitting so many. What's the metaphor escapes me, but you're accomplishing a lot with just this one task.
Thank you.
So okay. Is that pretty standard with homeschooling, that when you become interested in something, you're able to kind of, I mean, because you're teaching English, you're teaching creative writing. This is good stuff they're learning, and I'm assuming they're reading other books beyond the Travelers League even, and you're talking about those and helping to inform that. Yep. So have you been able to do that consistently throughout since 2018 to find different ways to work them in, or is this a relatively new phenomenon?
This is a new project. But after the first book came out, I mean, within a couple of months, a homeschool family in Illinois, of all places, ended up buying the book and reading it. And the mom, a homeschool mom, reached out to me and said, "My daughters want to become writers. Would you be open to teaching them about writing? Like, what did you learn? How did you create a book? How do you write? How do you create stories?" And I told her, I said, "I've only done this one time. You know, I can't be any newer to writing and publishing and, you know, authoring than I am right now, but I'll teach them what I've learned so far." And so we did that for about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Every other week I would do a Skype call or a Zoom call with them, and they would write us every time. They would write a story, and they would submit it to me before we would get together. And I would read it. I'd give them feedback. I'd tell them what I'd like. I'd tell them what I had learned. You know, like if I had written the story, what I would tweak or change or think about, or, you know, just based on what I had learned so far. And they really got a lot out of that. They really seemed to enjoy it. And that's a very normal thing in the homeschool community, where there's a lot of sharing. If someone starts developing a skill set, they don't have to be a master, but if they have a skill set they're developing and they're willing to share that, you know, that education that they've gotten for themselves, if they could share that with others, you know, they do that. They organize that. So I'm happy to do it, and I'm just thrilled kids are interesting. And I think more than anything else, I love, besides the actual writing, I love it when kids walk up to me and said, "I read your book, and I want to be a writer when I grow up. Can I ask you some questions about writing?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely." I just think it's wonderful to just inspire the creativity in kids to actually think, you know, I can do this myself. You know, what I love about kids is that they're not adults. What I mean by that is that, like, adults, like with me, when I was, you know, presented with the challenge of writing a book, there's just a lot of inhibition, a lot of reasons why I can't do it or maybe shouldn't do it, and sensitive to the criticism or the potential feedback, you know, just a lot of second guessing myself. Kids don't have that for the most part. They haven't been knocked down so many times that they have those inhibitions. So when it, you know, like when I was a kid, you know, 6, 7 years old, I thought if I just believed hard enough, I could actually fly. Like, you know, I just thought that I could do anything. And so
did you test this theory?
I didn't. I don't know how I'm alive. I don't know how I didn't climb up on the roof and jump off and break my neck. but
readers everywhere appreciate that you didn't.
I know. Well, I certainly wouldn't have the joy of you know, my 2 kids right now for sure. But kids don't. They believe they can do it. There's not a lot out there telling them they can't. And so when they're inspired to do, kids are underrated too. I mean, they can understand concepts, I think, on a deeper level than what we really give them credit for. And so I want to write to that. I want to write in a way that doesn't, you know, talk down to them or narrate down to them. I really want, you know, to write it in somewhat adult language maybe a challenging word here and there. You know, I think they understand emotion, they understand stories, and I think that they just deserve more credit. So when a kid says, I want to be a writer, they truly believe they can do it. And so I want to tell them everything I can. I want to encourage them and tell them everything that I've learned, because I want to see them go. I want to see them do it. You know, and to think about that, it'd be really neat to be, you know, a teenager, and you've already written a book. You've already self-published it, and you're going into high school, you're going into college, and you've already accomplished this thing that in adults' minds is just such it almost seems like an overbearing accomplishment for people who want to write. I've talked to several people that like, oh, I've always thought about writing a book, but I just didn't, you know, I just never sat down and did it, or I just couldn't figure it out, or I didn't want to figure it out, or I didn't want to submit it. They just never got around to it because all these inhibitions, and just kids don't have that. So.
But I also don't necessarily have the sole motive of I want to be famous. I want this to become my overall living that's going to sustain
Sure.
me and my family forever, and our golden palace. Just the joy of I've got a great story and I'm sharing it and people like it is enough for lots of kids. There's always one.
Yeah, absolutely.
For lots of children.
And I wish I had started so much earlier. I was 40 years old in 2018 when I wrote my first middle grade book. And man, I wish I had started 20 years earlier. I wish I had discovered my love for writing fiction way back then. But it is what it is. Now I'm 40 years old and I have to, face the reality that I really love this. And there's still time, hopefully, to turn this into something that could sustain my family potentially in the future. That's the dream, right? To do this full time. So I'm working towards that. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to write stories that I love writing and that people will enjoy, particularly that middle grade age range.
Barbara Shoup, check the back catalog, esteemed audience. She was the second or third guest, and then she came back to discuss her book on writing. But she said that she tells people that want to write, that are no longer in their 20s, that it's too late to be that young writer you might have been. But it's never too late to be a writer and to be the writer you want to be now.
That's awesome.